alcohols. Okay, but in addition to this, because you know there's another alcohol, I'll send ethylene. Clear? It's very interesting actually. If you see alcohol poisoning, very interesting. If you understand the basics behind it, it's very interesting. Alcohol poisoning, very interesting kind of situation it is. Okay? So you got this ethylene glycol, methanol, and isopropyl alcohol comes with volatile. I will send ethylene glycol along with it. I'll obviously do a finger stick glucose. Will come in my AVG any which ways. Clear? And you may want to send a urine. Now, why do you want to send a urine in this case? Why?
Toxicology screening.
Huh? No. Toxicology screening will not be here.
Ketones.
No. So sometimes what does happen? This is getting converted to glycine and then oxalic acid, right? So this oxalic acid will form calcium oxalate crystals in the urinary tract. So if a person is a young person without any other problem and in the urine routine microscopy there is calcium oxalate crystals, and the situation is such that he is having inebriation, we are suspecting poisoning, calcium oxalate will be found in the urinary tract. Calcium oxalate, which will give you an idea, oh, this is probably alcohol poisoning. Clear? Correct? So the question that comes over here is when I'm sending these levels, what am I supposed to take care of? I'm supposed to take care that what time I'm sending them, because these all have very low half lives. Abhi, today if I give, Gokul does not drink, who drinks here? Atul, if I give you, say I give you 80 ml twice of absolute vodka, how much will you, how quickly you will go down?
Immediately, jaldi ho jaunga.
Within 30-40 minutes? 1 hour max? So this means to say your levels go up in the body very quickly. It goes up very quickly. So since it goes up very quickly, the half-life is barely around 3 hours. So if you are going to send your levels after 6 hours, practically there should be no alcohol in the system. You understand? Practically the alcohol in the system should be absolutely minimum. मतलब 12 घंटा तो zero होगा. 4 times half-life हो गया. You understand? So 12 घंटे में तो zero ही हो जाएगा. So मतलब कल रात को पिया, आज मैंने alcohol level लिया, वो गलत हो जाता है. Are you getting the point? Meanwhile, the other corollary to that is, if by any chance you get an alcohol positive, means it's really there in the system in a big amount. After 6 hours भी अगर तुमको ethanol मिल गया system में, means that it is really in a big amount. You got the point? So when you say big amount, it means anything more than 100 milligram per dl. Anything more than 100 milligram per dl is actually big amount. And if you want specifics, it's 20, 30 and 40. Methanol, ethylene glycol and isopropyl alcohol. Okay, but ethanol is 100. That is why the permissible driving concentration is
30.3 less than 30 milligram.
80 milligram. The usual amount that you can have permissible driving limit is 80 milligram per dl of ethanol. Okay, 80 milligram per dl. None of your drink looks like
30 per day.
80. Permissible.
But now they say there is no permissible for the normal drinking now. Initially they thought it is cardioprotective, but it is not.
Permissible in the sense permissible for driving.
Driving.
Permissible limit for driving is 80 milligram per dl. Okay. After 80 milligram per dl, you will get inebriated. After 80 milligram per dl. So does anybody use a Kedroid here? Nobody uses a Kedroid. I will show you what's a Kedroid. So nowadays, most of your car keys, they have got something called as Kedroid. Or most of your car keys, whoever drinks and goes around celebrities, they always have Kedroids with them. Kedroids are it's a small, जैसे अपना कार ओपन करते हैं ना, ओपन क्लोज करता है, तो वैसा उसमें लगाया जाता है. उसमें breath analyzer होता है, which actually detects if it's more than 80. So it's called Kedroid. It's there. Video on the Kedroid. Many people have it.
KETO, right?
KEY.
Kedroid.
So that you don't drive, no?
Kedroid.
Yeah. So if you actually come out of a pub and a spa or something like that and you want to go home, you just blow into it. It says it's 80 milligram per dl up, and you should not supposed to drive. Okay, so these are all things that people use so that they keep themselves as well as other people safe. Okay, so 80 milligram per DL is the permissible driving limit beyond which person will get inebriated, and this you should remember. Okay, remember this because as we go ahead, this will come into use. Okay, so 100 milligram per DL is when the person is inebriated. Means he's nice, he's झूल रहा है, time pass कर रहा है, वो inebriation होता है, वो 100 milligram per DL होता है. ठीक है, 100 milligram per DL. Clear on this? So it varies from person to person, but 100 to 150 is the limit at which a person gets inebriated. Clear? Clear on this? And when you're sending these alcohol levels, they can't be sent anyways. It has to be done through mass spectroscopy, which is a very cumbersome procedure and takes a long time before the answers come. That's why you can't do urine toxicology level. You understand? You can't do urine toxicology level. A urine toxicology will tell you just there is alcohol in the system. It will not tell you anything more than that. To actually figure out whether there is toxic levels of alcohol, you need to do mass spectroscopy, which takes hours and days at a stretch to do. Clear?
It's very high. 16,000, 17,000.
Yeah, but it is good, na? It is rather than actually paying every day 2,000 rupees.
Okay.
You understand? Because this if you have got, you pay 2,000 rupees.
Yes.
Correct? So you just take this. You just take this at least for the life you are protected, isn't it?
अच्छा
और a person who drinks like अभी बाहर गया पी लिया देखो क्या होता है.
उतना करने का ही नहीं, पी के सो जाने का.
Uber लेके जाने का.
वही
So now that we know what the investigation that we're going to send for it, the few things that we should know is what are the signs and symptoms. So methanol being very quick, now within an hour or two, you will go into inebriation. Within an hour or two, you will go to a phase of inebriation. You will be in a state of inebriation, means there will be some nystagmus, do dikh raha hai, Amitabh Bachchan types. He's not able to walk, he's having dizziness while walking, nystagmus, blurring of vision. All this will occur when you are at 1 hour. Unfortunately, with methanol poisoning, then there is a latent period where everything becomes normal. In methanol poisoning, there is a latent period. So after that 6 hours or 3 or 4 hours, there is a latent period where everything is normal. Patient is absolutely normal. Patient एकदम सही हो जाता है. And then within 24 to 72 hours, suddenly the patient starts manifesting signs of seizures, coma, renal failure, and blindness. So it's divided into 3 phases. You have the immediate phase, a latent phase, and then all of a sudden the patient goes into all the manifestations, which includes renal failure and blindness and things like that. That's with methanol poisoning. Whereas ethylene glycol poisoning goes slowly. Okay, it starts with inebriation. Then the patient becomes having, slowly going towards cardiopulmonary symptoms where he gets breathless and dizziness and things like that, and then goes into a situation where he goes into renal failure and things like that. So coma and seizures. So ethylene glycol is slow. Methanol is very dangerous, and methanol is dangerous because of the fact that when methanol is getting converted, it gets converted to something called as formic acid. It is this formic acid that affects 2 parts of your body. One, the eyes, and causes blindness. And 2, the basal ganglia, causing all kinds of problems in the brain. Clear? It affects the basal ganglia and causes at the eyes. So be worried about this kind of poisoning. Very, very worried. Correct? So how does ethanol metabolize in our body? How does ethanol metabolize in our body? Sorry?
Alcohol
Less and then acetaldehyde.
Alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme.
Correct. So ethanol per se is not a problem. It gets converted to acetaldehyde and then comes out. Ethanol is not problematic. Ethanol से हमको कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. ठीक है? Ethanol से हमको कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. You understand? So ethanol will get converted to acetaldehyde, will then get converted to our usual acetyl coenzyme. तो आज अल्कोहल तुम पियोगे तो धीरे-धीरे मेटाबॉलाइज अगर तुम्हारा लिवर बराबर है तो मेटाबॉलाइज करके निकल जाएगा. Acetyl coenzyme is ethanol is not problematic. But unfortunately, what happens with methanol is the fact that this gets converted to formaldehyde, then to formic acid, which is toxic. You understand? Correct? So this formic acid then converts into CO2 and H2 and all these things, so no problem. But this is a toxic metabolite that is actually not picked up by your anion gap. Okay, that's why the anion gap becomes high. You don't know, it's not sodium, potassium, chloride, it's unmeasured anions. Actually, unmeasured anions. So this is your unmeasured. So when we discuss anion gap, we said unmeasured anions minus unmeasured cations is your anion gap. Your unmeasured anions that you have here is this formic acid, which is a disastrous problem. You drink this methanol, nothing will happen to you. You have methanol in the system, धीरे धीरे अगर मेटाबोलाइज हो गया, अच्छे से निकल गया तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं, एक्सक्रीट हो गया तो अच्छा हो गया. लेकिन अगर ये कन्वर्ट होता है विद द हेल्प ऑफ एल्डिहाइड डिहाइड्रोजनेस, कन्वर्ट अगर हो गया, then it becomes formaldehyde and formic acid, where formic acid becomes disastrous. So the metabolites are toxic. Methanol is not toxic. You understand? Similarly, ethylene glycol, I explained to you, it gets converted to glycolic acid, which is toxic. Then it gets converted to glycine, oxalic acid, again toxic, and then gets converted back. So ethylene glycol is not poisonous, whereas this part is kind of causing the unmeasured anions, raising your anion gap. Is your unmeasured anions raising your anion gap? Got the point? So the entire point is to prevent metabolism. When it comes to alcohol poisoning, the entire point is prevent this from forming. This is there in the system, but prevent this from forming and remove this out. The entire point is, what is the point? That prevent this metabolite from forming. Prevent this metabolite from forming. Okay, the entire antidote is based on preventing this metabolite from forming. Okay, and then removing this out by some other method. Either the body removes it out from the kidneys. Okay, from the kidneys, excretes it out to the kidneys, or you remove it out by dialysis. You got the point? The entire point is that. Means you prevent this from occurring, and that's why you have medicines that inhibit aldehyde dehydrogenase. You have medicines which is used to prevent the metabolism of these particular alcohols, and that's what we call as fomeprazole. Okay, that's what is called as fomeprazole. Very, very expensive. Very expensive. Okay, I used it only once in my life, and I had to write a letter to the CEO before using it in abroad. It's as expensive as that. $1,500 उसका cost है.
Doing it, sir, yeah.
कोई यूज ही नहीं करता है, because $1,500 का है. You know, $1,500, you can imagine $1,500 कितना हो गया? And you have to give it again. It's not like you just one time use. इसको 3, 4, 5 बार use. As long as the anion gap is elevated, before this elevated ethylene glycol, you'll have to keep on giving it, na? So that issue is that. So $1,500 is a very big amount to give for one vial of fomeprazole. Okay, and that is the reason what we do is we try to prevent this formation by making ethanol compete for the aldehyde dehydrogenase. So what we try to do is, okay, this is very expensive. Let me try to prevent this metabolism by making alcohol or ethanol compete for the aldehyde dehydrogenase, preventing this from occurring. The entire point is, let me use alcohol. The alcohol will use up the aldehyde dehydrogenase. There will be no aldehyde dehydrogenase left for conversion into the metabolite, which is toxic, and I will remove the methanol from the system, from dialysis. You got the point I'm saying? I don't do ethylene glycol by dialysis. Correct? Because unfortunately, this does not clear by activated charcoal. You cannot take it out by activated charcoal. You can put a nasogastric tube. This is the only place where you can put a nasogastric tube which is patla. You don't need a big nasogastric tube because it's water. It's like water liquid, na? Gastric liquid. You got the point. And that's why you put a patla nasogastric tube and remove the alcohol from inside the body, or do a gastric lavage if it comes within an hour. Okay? Otherwise, activated charcoal is not going to work in these cases. It doesn't work. So the decontamination that we talk about doesn't occur in this case. It doesn't occur in this case, and that is the reason we need to remove it out. So then the question that comes is, how much alcohol do we give to such patients? So you must remember that when we are giving alcohol, we have to ensure that the patient is inebriated. You have to ensure that the patient is inebriated. अगर वो normally तुम्हारे सामने बैठा है, तुमने methanol पिया है उसने, and you find the methanol levels to be more than 20 milligram per dl, means methanol is high. He has taken large volume. So I want to make him drunk. I want to make him drunk. That's the amount I must give. So what is drunk? More than
100.
around 100. So my ethanol levels when I'm giving ethanol has to be more than, correct? That's why you need to know that level. ठीक है? हाँ? You need to give, sorry?
एक वो 30 में कितना
कितना लेगा? That's the question. So that's exactly the question. हाँ? Correct. So you need to understand how much alcohol to give. So that the person is inebriated. That is the entire question, isn't it? And there are different kinds of alcohol. There is beer, there is wine, there is hard alcohol. Let's divide it into soft alcohol, which includes beer and all these things, a medium alcohol, which is like wine, and a hard alcohol, which is like whiskey or vodka. Okay? You normally divide into hard liquor, soft liquor, and somewhere in the middle, which is wine. Okay? Clear on this? So in that, you must understand what is proof. What is proof?
The amount of concentration of alcohol in the drink.
Correct. Absolute. Okay. So when it is mentioned in your alcohol as 5%, the proof is 10. It's double. Okay. The proof is 10. If it is mentioned in your this as 20% alcohol, the proof is 40.
40 ml of pure alcohol.
Pure. 40 is the proof. It's called proof. We call it as proof. Okay. So alcohol is measured in terms of proofs. What is mentioned over there is the percentage of alcohol content, but we talk of proof always. Why is that important? Because the loading dose is 0.8 gram per kilogram divided by proof. That's the answer. The answer to your question is it is divided by the proof. You understand? That is the loading dose. So let's take the example of
Loading
beer.
dose for what?
Loading dose for alcohol.
Okay.
You have to give ethanol. You have to give ethanol in order to ensure that it is competing with aldehyde dehydrogenase, so that the metabolite is not created. And we are going to do this only. We are not going to use omeprazole. We are going to do this only in our usual time. We are going to use alcohol for all patients who are coming with alcohol poisoning. We are going to use alcohol. Okay? So how do we use it? So this is the loading dose, 0.8 gram per kilogram divided by the proof. Now let's take the example of beer. Beer has, what is the concentration of alcohol in beer?
5%.
Very good. So इधर मतलब 5%. So the proof is 10. 10% means 0.1. Correct? 10%. So this means if I have to give beer 0.8 gram per kilogram divided by 0.1, ठीक है? तो 8 gram, 8, and this is equal to 60. This is equal to the ml. This is equal to the ml. तो कितना हो गया? 8 into 6 or 8 into 5. 5 is 400 ml. Means one beer. One beer is 350 ml. Proof.
10 ml.
See,
10%.
I'll explain to you once more. What is the loading dose? The loading dose is
So 4 कैसे किया?
I'll explain to you. 0.8 gram per kilogram divided by proof is equal to the ml of the liquid, whatever liquid you're giving. Ml of whatever alcohol you're giving is equal to the ml. Now, beer has got 5% of, it's written on the 5% alcohol. So the proof is how much? 10%, which basically means 0.1. Which basically means 0.1. So now what I'm doing, 0.8 grams per kilogram divided by 0.1. That means 8 gram per 8 kilogram in mLs. So 8 into 50, which is equal to 400. So 400 ml would be your loading dose. Would be your loading dose. You understand? So if I have to give beer, it will be 400 ml. That means one beer. One beer is 350 ml. That's approximately 355 ml is actual one beer. So it's 355 ml is what you give as loading dose. This is your approximate loading dose. It's not necessary that patient will be inebriated. If you have to see that he's inebriated, he's not able to see properly, he's disoriented, he's slightly disoriented, he has to be at that level. He has to be at that clinically. So if it doesn't happen with that 355, but still, in this case, I would not be giving beer. Why I will not be giving beer? देना पड़ रहा है. अगर 400 में को ml देना पड़ेगा तो क्या होगा? तो अगर मैं तेरे को राइस मैं तेरे को 400 में अभी दिया तो क्या होगा तेरे को?
वॉमिटिंग हो जाएगा ना.
सॉरी क्या होगा? तेरे को मैं 400 में तुरंत भी नहीं बोला क्या होगा? यू ड्रिंक राइट? 400 में क्या होगा? करेक्ट. गैस्ट्रिक इरिटेशन. तो इफ यू मैं अगर 500 ml 400 ml का बियर में पी गया, immediately I will get gastric irritation and vomit it out. I can't do that. I can't do that. You got the point. So I can't give such a high amount. 400 ml 500 ml दे नहीं पाऊंगा मैं. बोलो इसका. हाँ? उतनी निहारी को उधर चले जाओ. वो पेशेंट गया क्यों पूछेगा? कल गया. तो सर लेक्चर में. हाँ? You understand what I'm saying? So you understand? क्या what you asked was the question? Huh? So that means I really can't use beer. It just makes sense to use beer. So what about wine?
वाइन
So wine
14%
usually
होता है.
contains 10%.
10%.
हाँ? That means कितना हो गया?
20.2.
20 हो गया. मतलब इसका डबल, इसका हाफ होगा. हाँ? तो कितना हो गया? 150. Around 150 no? 350 was otherwise इसका हाफ हो गया. 150 हो गया wine. अगर वाइन दे रहे हो तो 150. Also I don't. ये ज़्यादा ही है. वाइन खरीदने को महंगा पड़ेगा हम लोग. बराबर है ना. वाइन खरीदने को महंगा. It's actually practically a problem. तो 150 ml वाइन खरीदने जाओगे तो महंगा पड़ेगा तुम लोगों को. उसको मेंटेनेंस भी करना है हमको. हाँ? So it is expensive to use wine per se. हाँ? So that's why we use usual alcohol.
वाइन कितना परसेंट रहता है?
10.
10 to 12%. Wine is generally 10 to 12%. The proof will be 20. So if the proof is 20, you have 0.2. So 0.2 करेगा तो half the amount that you have for beer. So if your beer is 350, your wine will be 150, 175 ml. Now 175 ml is actually expensive. If you want to buy wine, it becomes expensive. Huh? And that is the reason you think of giving usual alcohol or usual vodka. Now vodka कैसा रहता है?
30%.
Huh? Correct. It is around 30%. So the proof becomes somewhere around 60.6. ठीक है? So if it's 0.6, the amount is one standard drink, which is what standard drink is 30 to 40 ml. One standard drink is 30 to 40. So it's very simple. If you have to load your patient, give one standard drink of anything. One standard drink of beer, one standard drink of hard liquor, or one standard drink of wine. That's how it is. Okay, wine will not be one standard. 155 नहीं होता wine का, तो बहुत कम रहता है. लेकिन standard drink अगर पढ़ोगे, तो या तो फिर one beer standard or one beer or one hard liquor, one standard drink. Correct? But you don't just give it like that. You give it and then you see whether the patient is actually becoming inebriated or not. He has to become inebriated. It's very essential. It's very essential that he becomes inebriated, which corresponds to 100 milligram per dl. I can't keep sending ethanol levels. You got the point? Huh? So I need to make him inebriated so that then it actually competes for alcohol dehydrogenase. So that and then I have time for removing that methanol from the system by dialysis. You understand? Put a line and do dialysis. Correct? Got it? So this also makes, now you will also, so clear on this? And the maintenance will be what? 10% of that.
10%
Every hour. So he'll be on an alcohol infusion through the Ray's tube every hour so that he stands to be inebriated. But you cannot say 10%, it is titrated. It is titrated. Okay, so for example, if he gets up and he becomes completely sober, you have to increase it. No, you have to increase it. It has to be, you have to maintain it. This is just an average. Every person metabolizes very differently. This is just an average. So the average you should start is one drink followed by 20 ml per hour, 10 ml per hour. 20 or 10 ml per hour you can start. Average. You buy a vodka 40 ml start and 20 ml per hour. Then what you will do? Okay, and you will maintain inebriation. So this comes to the question as to how will you now titrate it. So if the patient has already taken ethanol, which is the biggest problem in alcohol poisoning is the fact that it's already mixed with ethanol. Are you getting the point? Huh? The issue is not about how to give it. The issue is when to give it. You get the point? Because what's going to happen if he's taken ethanol? If he's taken ethanol, what's going to happen? Already the alcohol dehydrogenase is working. Now what do I do? The question comes like that. So since we know that the half-life is 2 hours, I will repeat an ethanol concentrate. In this time I need ethanol levels. If the ethanol level is less than 100, I will not. I will need to start this patient on alcohol. But so this means to say, if I have high anion gap, metabolic acidosis plus less than 100 milligram per dl of ethanol, this means I will give this patient alcohol. If I have a patient of normal anion gap metabolic acidosis with more than 100 milligram or less than 100 milligram per dl, I will not do anything. I will not do anything. You understand? समझा कि नहीं समझा?
If he has Nagba, but more than
If he has
half-
hagma means his hagma is contributed as a result of the formic acid that is coming in, or the other unmeasured anions. So the glycolic acid that is there, that is causing the hagma here. At this
Less
stage,
than-
if his ethanol levels are less than
Less
100
than
milligram per DL, means I still need to give alcohol. Correct. In the meantime, if I have normal anion gap metabolic acidosis, I mostly don't have in the system these things. That's why even if it's less or more than 100 milligram per DL, I don't need to give this alcohol. Also, this means to say, and since I know that alcohol is preventing it, there will be a time after 6 hours that ethanol has gone out of the body, but formic acid is still there. That's why I follow the anion gap.
अच्छा
Okay, so my monitoring of this patient would be 2 to hourly anion gap.
anion gap
You got the point. So if I monitor anion gap now, it's normal. Okay, ethanol level is normal. I don't need to do anything. But then 2 hours later I do anion gap goes to higher amounts. Now the metabolism is happening. Then metabolism is happening. Ethanol is moved out of the system. I need to give alcohol. You got the point? How I'm managing this patient? You got the point. So ethanol levels become very, very important in these cases. Ethanol level becomes very, very important. So that if the ethanol levels are low and the patient has high anion gap, I need to actually follow it up. So how long do you follow the anion gap? So on an average, it is, since we know the half-life of this methanol, of this ethylene glycol is 3 hours, approximately 3 hours, and maximum to 5 hours. I will need to follow it for at least 3 times the half-life to 4 times the half-life. Okay, so maybe 12 hours to 16 hours, approximately I'll follow. So I will follow the anion gap for 12 to 16 hours. And once consecutive anion gaps are normal, I know there is no alcohol left, or I know there is no methanol or ethylene glycol left in the system. I can stop doing this anymore. I can stop it completely. Okay, so I will. So if say the patient comes in, I do anion gap. I found it to be normal. I will not say he's okay. I will admit him because he's taking mega dose in a group. And when do we call it mega dose? When it's an outbreak. Outbreak means what? There is at least 3 people in the last 3 days who have become blind or have organ failures. Correct? So if there are at least 3 people, it's called as an outbreak. When there are at least 3 people in the last 3 days who have become blind, who have become blind or suffered organ failures, and he's coming from the same community, he's coming from the same community, that is called as an outbreak. I will admit him, irrespective of whether he's normal or abnormal.
Sir, only arterial anion gap works in this case. No?
Anion gap, yes.
Only arterial, venous.
It doesn't make a difference, anion or venous. Anion gap is anion gap.
Also because like repeated pricking of everything.
You can do venous anion gap, no problem. I mean, there is no difference between arterial and venous. It's not this way only arterial. You can use arterial, venous, anything you want. We need an anion gap, that's all. We need the anion gap. Anion gap is what is important here. Clear? So what can you do if it is already converted? If it is already converted, what can you do? If it is already converted, one of the things you can do is to prevent that formic acid from forming. You can give glucoverin, you can give thiamine. These are the things you will probably give to prevent it from getting converted further to bigger amounts, which is not very effective. But you will probably want to give folinic acid. You will want to give vitamin B3, niacin, and thiamine. So these are the few things you would want to give in these cases to prevent this conversion from occurring. So you will find hypocalcemia in this patient. That doesn't mean you treat it, because if you treat it, there will be calcium oxalate crystals forming in renal failure developing. There will be hypocalcemia, so it's better not to give the calcium, because the point is glycine will get converted to oxalic acid and calcium oxalate crystals. So I would not give calcium in these cases. Clear? So this completes alcohol poisoning. Okay? Clear?